if you can predict and prevent as opposed to repair and replace, it is so much a better outcome.
Hello, Matthew Grant here. Well, whilst we may not be able to easily travel around the world just now, at least in today's interconnected working lives, there's not much stopping us talking to people wherever they are. And of course, with over 50% of our listeners being outside of the UK, there's a good chance that you yourself are listening to us from the Americas, Europe, Australasia, or Africa. Bad luck though if you are in South Africa, because the government there has banned the sale of alcohol. Craig, I hope you've survived your home brewed cider. But this week we are in Bermuda, so to speak, catching up again with Sean Ringsted on a topic that we're following very carefully at Instech London, IoT for insurance. Sean, it's fantastic to get you back on this Instech London podcast. We last had you on episode 35. I'm afraid you're no longer the most popular download, but you're still doing very well. You're at number 2 and still getting downloaded, and this is your chance to get back into number 1. But as we're talking, you are locked down in Bermuda, and when we were together about 18 months ago, you were very proud of you doing your 10,000 steps a day. How are you coping with being in Bermuda during the lockdown? And in particular, how many times do you get around the island if you've got to do 10,000 steps every day?
Well, it's good to talk to you. And yes, we all have our individual experiences in this moment. But I mean, it's remarkable, right? Where it unites us all in terms of how we're getting through it. My 10,000 steps, I describe them as peaking on a run and then plateauing to 0, because most of the time seems to be spent on conference calls and in video working. So I'm managing to get to the 10,000, but just a different way. So
you are the Chief Digital Officer of Chubb. You're also the Chief Risk Officer. You report into the CEO of Chubb, Evan Greenberg, and you've been with the organization, previously known as ACE, since 1996. So the background to this is, last time we spoke when you were in London a few months ago, we were talking about, or I was asking you about how hard it seems to be for insurers to find real practical situations where they could embed or get access to data coming out of IoT or Internet of Things for their clients. And it was interesting that you at Chubb seems to have found a number of use cases, and you seem very positive. You were last time we spoke, but my sense is you've really got some strong examples coming out now, and you offered to talk about those. So it'd be really interesting to hear sort of for you, what is currently some of the areas you're seeing the most success in between you and your clients as you think about the opportunities from IoT?
Well, I think generally, Matthew, we have been very, very upbeat, bullish, long-term in terms of the value that IoT can and will bring to clients in terms of how they manage their exposures and manage their risk. And I say that across the breadth of consumer and commercial. It really is, I think, going to be a game changer. And when you think about how the cost of the devices continue to drop and the connectivity continues to improve, those are only going to be accelerants to all of that. I think it is hard yards, right? There is no shortcut to rolling up sleeves, working with clients, and figuring out how to get this into the client's day to day. And there's no one single playbook to this, right? You have to have a range of sensors, a range of approaches, and really customize it. But I just some examples. We're in at a major hospital, and already we've averted 3 large water losses through sensors being deployed there, and they alert the facility management and our risk engineers, and we fix the issues right before there's any damage or mold or claim. And that's just saving. That's literally saving millions of dollars to that client And it's not just the dollars, right? It's the lost time, right? And damage to equipment and so on. In another example, we're in at a college campus, and similar thing, right? The sensors there will alert the campus staff and our risk engineers of issues. And that if you think about unoccupied building space today, there's real value to that. On the consumer side, and you go to some of our high net worth customers, and they've installed sensors in their wine collections to monitor for changes in temperature, humidity, and vibration. We're starting to see a feedback loop there of alerts and issues. It's starting to sort of broaden out into sort of more interesting areas. We had think about inland marine, and we recently had a truck of computers stolen. But because we had IOT sensors on that truck, we were able to recover the truck and $2 million in inventory. And these sensors, they can not only monitor the individual pallet, but if your truck is parked overnight where it's a bit more vulnerable, you can put the sensors around the vehicle.
I think the wine collection one is an excellent way of getting people's attention, introducing them to the concept of sensors and how they can work. I can see things like smoke alarms. People have known about it for years, but don't necessarily deploy them. But if you basically sell them something on the basis it's going to protect their wine collection, I bet you get a lot more engagement on that one. So some really interesting examples there. What's typically, or if there is a typical example, or if not, what are the different ways that discussion starts with your clients? So, for example, a hospital, they had some sensors in place. They're one of your clients. Do you go to them as Chubb and present to them a solution, or is it more common that they would already have gone down that route, and then when they've got the data there, you then start to work with them in terms of better use of what they're seeing from those sensors?
So I think you can go down several paths, Matthew. I mean, we are presenting these options to our clients. I think the hospital one, though, is a very good example of where and how these programs will be successful, because we had a very on the client side, a very proactive and thoughtful risk manager who really saw the value for this and saw it broader than saying I can get lower insurance costs. They thought about the risks that they face and the benefits that this would bring. So yes, I can drive a lower insurance cost, but I can also think about my building maintenance in a different way. I can think about my capital expenditure in a different way, and I can also think about my workforce in a different way. So rather than having people patrol, keeping an eye out for leaks and doing that on social hours, far better that I can do it, through digital means, and then direct my human resource, right, when the need arises and to more value-added type tasks. So that example is going to apply across the spectrum here of the use cases. This is really going to take hold when those who own the assets, right, are thinking about the risks that way. We can partner with them, but I don't think insurance alone, right, can drive that discussion.
Using that example of the risk manager with the hospital and the partnership. So the risk manager is a kind of enlightened risk manager, would have a contact presumably with his or her broker, would know that Chubb was his insurer. Are they then coming to you, either the broker or the risk manager, and asking for some help, or how does that discussion evolve once they've seen the benefit, but presumably they see some additional benefit other than monitoring their own systems and risks from actually having Chubb involved, to the extent that they're either willing to partner with you, or I don't know, they explicitly share data with you? You
mentioned smoke, but for us, as we think about these devices and we think about water is a significant peril next to fire, but it's not thought of that way, right? Generally, right, in the insured context or the broker context or the insurer context. But I think there's an increasing awareness, right, that this is a problem, something that needs to be tackled. It's going to take time, but I think as you look out in the next 2 or 3 years, water is the new fire, right? And it's going to be thought of that way. And so you mentioned smoke alarms. You think of fire extinguishers, you think of sprinkler systems, et cetera, et cetera. I think you're going to have that same discipline and rigor around water. And for any building/risk manager, it's going to be the new normal in 3-4 years' time, that you're going to have these devices that help mitigate the damage from water, just in the same way that you do with fire. And it's going to be the normal part of discussion with a risk manager, with a broker, to an underwriter, that everybody's thinking about water prevention, and that insurance structures are designed to take that into account, and you can price for it. And I think where it gets really exciting is now you can do that on an exposure basis, and that's the other angle that IoT brings, right? That you're not just looking at past data for 10 years and trying to extrapolate out. And so now you can get into these areas of exposure-based pricing, use-based pricing to determine insurance structures and costs and better risk management.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that in a minute. But just so talk about escape of water. I'm assuming that a lot of that is escape of water internally. I personally, from my household insurance, not from Chubb, but from one of your competitors, was quoted a price of 30% increase, and they claimed it was because generally escape of water was going up. So is that, as you say, that's becoming the new fire? Is that because there are just greater losses from water generally, or is there a greater awareness of it, or maybe they're just using it as an excuse to jack up my premium for other reasons?
I'm sure you're a very good client. No, I think there is real awareness, or there should be awareness in the industry, right, about water damage, and from leaking pipes, from faulty maintenance, from leaks in the roofs, etc. Water it's now a major peril and driver of insurance cost. There are two ways you could do it. You could, as an insurer, right, you can try and address it through rate. We also think that you can help prevent the problem, and it just turns it on its head, right? If you can predict and prevent as opposed to repair and replace, it is so much a better outcome, right? So, regardless of the premium that you're paying, Matthew, on your policy there, if you were to have that catastrophic water damage in your house, right? It's one thing to get the money from the insurer, but I don't know. You've got 2 months where you've got to get a plumber in, right? You've got to go and get some new carpet, some new furniture, and maybe you've got the prospect of mold, etc. I've got some money, but you know what? I've got 2 to 3 months of inconvenience on my hand. Much better than that repair and replace model to go predict and prevent. And in addition to financial structures, right, address it through technology and have something that will either detect the water before it becomes a problem, or even prevent it, right, by shutting down, your water pressure, right, before it leads to a loss.
And on that predict and prevent one, for water shut-off valves in particular, when I've seen people talking about this, it seems that there's a real challenge sort of retrofitting these to existing buildings, through a combination. If you've got to tap into old plumbing, you've got to get close to electrical source, you've got to find something to do it. So are you seeing that more when people are actually building new buildings, and maybe they've been around for a while in commercial structures? And then secondly, some other insurance companies is this where you as Chubb would actually work with your clients to help them either get recommendations, or maybe even, as some insurers are doing, give them a little device that they can put into their home or building to identify the water leakage?
Clearly much easier in a new building structure to think about these type of devices and to put them in. And I think that applies more broadly anyway in new building structures today. As you think about resiliency and how to make buildings energy efficient or more resilient to climate change, right? This is all part of that broader debate, I think, for newer buildings. But your range of as you know, your building space for commercial will vary from old to new. So the type of solutions that you can put in are going to be different. So I think each one of them is a discussion how to address that, and that's the same on the household side as well.
And so with that discussion, just coming back to your risk manager again, or the homeowner that's buying the insurance, I mean, presumably you have to work quite closely with the brokers, because the brokers are your contact with the insured. So do you have to then educate the brokers in that, or do you have a team at Chubb that actually the brokers can turn to work directly with the end client?
It varies, right? And it's a bit of both. At the end of the day, what we're doing is having to roll our sleeves up with clients on site more, right? So, particularly our risk engineering team working with clients, right? I think there's a need to have that partnership, right? You have to walk the real estate, right? You have to look at the structures. You have to look at where the piping is. You have to figure out what's the most effective deployment of sensors. They have cost. You have to integrate them. So you need to be thoughtful where and how you place them. It's a more dynamic relationship that way, I think, between insurer and insured. Said another way, very hard to do this sitting from your desktop, trying to push this through broker. You have to be engaged. You have to be on site and having that dialogue around this.
Yes, I guess that brings us around to the situation we're in just now. And you mentioned earlier on about unoccupied buildings. Is this early enough to be able to see any themes coming through from, it's risk is stating obvious, the difference between a building that is censored and connected versus those that are not, and the ability, I guess, is two things. One is to remotely turn off if it's water or something else that is causing a loss, or the second one is actually get out there and do the intervention. But are there some themes coming through that you can see already?
I think it's a bit too early to say there are any themes. I think the case was very strong for IoT providing benefit in what we're seeing today in terms of unoccupied space or remote is only going to be an accelerant. So we do have sensors installed on college campuses, and we had an incident just a couple weeks back where our sensors picked up a water leak, and that was on a third floor laundry room in a on-campus apartment, so unoccupied and a water leak. And in that instance, a pipe coupling that feeds into the washer had broken off and was causing flood. So picked that up. So that's one instance that we've seen. I think generally it comes back to what I was saying earlier, right? It just underscores there is a more efficient way and a better way to think about the risk management of a building through sensors. And one of the benefits of that is, yes, you can do remote monitoring.
So Sean, you talked earlier on about real-time measurement for exposure management. There are also people, I think, talking about use of IoT for looking at pricing and other types of risk management. But it'd be interesting just to hear specifically what you're seeing in that area of exposure management, and any opportunity to see out there for your real-time pricing or variable pricing using data coming in from sensors.
This will be a progression, a journey on the real-time side. Certainly for risk management purposes, we're already there, right? Those alerts are going to risk managers, to our engineers when something's happening on the premises, and then they can determine, depending on the severity, what course of action to take. I think real-time pricing is very much a goal. it's probably in the future, right? Until this builds up in terms of the data, and it'll depend upon the type of exposure and peril where real-time pricing makes sense. So I think the next step, what I think is on the horizon in real, right, as this builds up, is more of an exposure-based view of pricing as opposed to historical loss experience-based pricing. And based on the sensors, you can get a much better handle on the footprint of the premises, of the building envelope, and determine and set your pricing in a more thoughtful way than perhaps just looking at aggregated historical data would allow you.
Yeah, I guess on that topic, it sort of brings us on to wearables. And in the sort of retail space, we've seen quite a lot of interest and people offering solutions such as you getting an iPhone and tracking what people's health is. If they're doing their 10,000 steps, they get a discount on the insurance. Yeah. I mean, from a personal point of view, I think that works both ways. I actually did that. I won't mention the company, but it just didn't work. I mean, this between the watch and the iPhone and the company, it didn't track what I was doing. They started charging me for it when they shouldn't have been charging me for it. Yeah, the whole experience was incredibly negative. Now, I don't think you're getting sort of involved in the life side, but it is a reminder of these things don't work well. They can have a sort of negative effect rather than a positive effect. But wearables, presumably with your clients in the commercial space, there are other applications such as workers' compensation and things where you see some benefits from using wearables. I mean, what's the sort of state of the art or state of the nation with regards to wearables from a commercial insurance perspective?
Well, I think for wearables on whether it's on the consumer side or in the workplace for something like workers' compensation, I think the promise is there, and the concepts are there. It's just much harder than the building, which is easier to put devices into. So on the workers' comp side, you've got I think I've seen challenges with the cost of the device, the comfort level, and then how employees are thinking about wearing these devices. So I think it's been slower there.
Sean, what about lessons from the developing world and developing economies? I mean, we've seen for a number of years now some solutions at very low cost in microinsurance and other areas using low-cost sensors, quite efficient ways of recording losses and actually paying claims. Are you learning anything from that in terms of both the sort of ways to collect information, but also the ability to make these sensors very cheap and very robust so they can survive in hostile environments?
So I think it's early days, Matthew. I mean, as you rightly point out, right? I mean, the cost of the devices are coming down. They've skipped sort of generation of technology with 5G. So you've got this massive connectivity. You've got cost effectiveness, and you've got robustness. And so you think whether from crop to parcel tracking to consumer the sort of healthcare, right? That there's going to be applicability here. So I think we're very excited about the potential. Too early to see where and how that'll translate into sort of permanent services and insurance products.
Are you able to talk about any of the organizations you're actually partnering with? I mean, IoT gets a lot of coverage in early stage companies, scale ups, insurtech these days. I mean, I do worry sometimes that we're all going to be, and the biggest success story of the last 5 years in insurtech is going to be pet insurance. I don't know if Chubb is doing wearables for pets, but if you are, I'd love to hear about it.
Well, that's how I get my 10,000 steps, Matthew. I put my watch on the dog.
That's what I was doing wrong with my one.
We're very open-minded. There's plenty of opportunity there, and if you're bringing something to the table, right, that is, and our view has gotten is the ability to scale, and it's practical, and it's got an application and a use, we're interested.
Does Chubb do anything on pets?
Not yet, not on wearables.
High net worth pets. I think that could be a market for you. Good. Well, then finally, there's a question that I think everybody asks in this area. What's the state of this sort of world with security now? All this information is being transmitted, a lot of it being transmitted wirelessly. Is it pretty robust?
This is the sort of the last mile, right? And this topic of security, of privacy, of interoperability, right, between sensors and building management systems, all of these things have to be overcome. We spend a lot of time on the security. We're deploying sensors that meet our security protocols and standards, but there's a lot of work to that. And you think about data privacy, particularly say GDPR, as an example, and where data is stored and how that data is used, and just getting devices to talk to each other, right, and getting that data to flow. So I think there is a lot of work that still needs to be done to overcome those barriers. So it's a real problem. It can be overcome, but the more that can be done to improve data standards and how data is used and the security of these devices, that'll only benefit the adoption.
So Sean, you've obviously done a lot of research in this area. You've got clients that are, I know, talking to you about it, but just generally for people who want to learn a little bit more about what is happening in the area of IoT, whether just generally or related to insurance, are there any recommendations you'd make for sources to go to learn?
Well, I think, Matthew, it's such a big topic. It's so broad in terms of what we mean by IoT, and it's got different. You can take different slices to it in terms of whether it's consumer or commercial, whether you're interested in the technology or that you're interested in the security or how it might be used. I've found the most benefit by just going out and talking to people, whether it's our clients, risk managers, to risk engineers, spending time with the technology folks to understand the security, or our underwriting teams to see where and how we can get this into the underwriting process. So there's plenty out there. So I think I would encourage anyone with a curiosity in this to get out there and find out a little bit more. It's going to be tremendously exciting, I think, for the industry with real applicability. So we need people who are curious that way to go and help make this happen.
Good. Maybe virtually get out there for the next few weeks.
Well, that's right.
And so, Sean, thanks for all that. Thanks for sharing a lot there and for taking some time out. I will let you get back to the start of your day. I know it's early in the morning still there in Bermuda.
Always good to chat and take care, and look forward to seeing you soon when we're allowed to.
Look forward to it. Thanks.
All right.
So IoT is one of the areas we're looking at more deeply in Instech London. We're also running this week a live chat event talking to Shepherd, 360 Global Net and Howden about some of the applications they're working on for remote monitoring of property. And we're going to be posting more articles on this topic. We're also going to be looking at some of the other companies we like in this space. So look out for those on the website. And if you yourselves are involved in IoTs, then please do let us know. And of course, as always, you can keep up to date with what's going on, who we're talking to, and what we're thinking in our weekly newsletter. Sign up on the website at www.instech.london. Thank you also for all the great feedback on the podcast we're getting. If you would like to make any specific comments, you can do so directly on my LinkedIn post, Matthew Grant, or follow the link in the episode note. And of course, we very much appreciate your ratings and if you mention us to others. Finally, Chubb is one of our many corporate members at Instech London. Details of what we offer to our corporate members and what benefits you can get out of Instech London are also available on the website, or just drop us an email directly at hello@Instech London. Until next week.